Thanks for clicking on Wayne.com for Inside the Zone. Along with us, as always, Justin Kenny and his expertise at the News Sentinel.
As we talk use that term loosely. Yes, we do.
I do, but you know what? We appreciate it here every Monday on Inside the Zone. Let's start off with 6A football because Homestead Warsaw, relatively even matchup, I think you think on paper. Homestead coming off a 66-point effort against Northrop last week. How do you see this sectional championship game being played out Friday at George Fisher Field?
I see a lot of points being scored, much like when we talked about Carroll and Warsaw, the potential there for a lot of points. This one even more so. Homestead, like you mentioned, the big offensive effort against Northrop, and then Warsaw was just tremendous last week in getting a win over Carroll. Their defense played very well in that game. I just don't know if they can slow down a Homestead offense that seems to be playing its best football right now.
Yeah, when you take a look at what Carroll had done in the regular season, there were a couple of weeks right in the middle of the season where they put up 60-point efforts. So they had some pieces. They knew how to put points on the board, but Warsaw limits them to 13. What does that say about the Warsaw defense, and what can kind of Homestead do to crack that code on Friday night?
Well, it was interesting because I think the last maybe third of the year, Carroll really showed some chinks in that armor offensively, wasn't putting up points like they did earlier in the season. I think that carried into the postseason. Now, Warsaw, I guess if you see a team so many times like they had Carroll over the last several years, you could start seeing some tendencies and stuff like that and maybe play towards those tendencies. But you have to be impressed with the way Warsaw was able to slow down Carroll offensively. I just think Homestead, not only with Jaya Wright, who is a great dual threat quarterback, Jordan Presley has been able to run the ball. Up front, they've been able to compete with most teams on the schedule. So for Warsaw, it's a step up, I think, in challenge, but we didn't think they could really knock off Carroll, and they handed them relatively easily last week.
You mentioned that offensive line for Homestead. You're talking a lot of seniors, a lot of experience. I think, Snyder is obviously very good on the offensive line. You could say Homestead is number one or number two in terms of offensive line play in the SAC this year.
Yeah.
These teams mimic each other kind of a lot offensively when you take a look at Jaya Wright, Michael Jensen at the quarterback positions. Will McGarvey's had a nice season running the ball for Warsaw. Jordan Presley has had a record-setting season at Homestead. And then you have receivers that can do different things. Matt Anderson has stepped up. They've got the streets for Warsaw. So do you see this as the first team to 40 wins?
Yeah, I think first team to 40, which team wins the turnover battle? Obviously, that's important in every game, but when you get into the playoffs and teams are a lot similar and comparable talent, turnovers are big. We saw it in the Woodland South Adams game. Turnovers killed Woodland. So for this game where I think there's going to be a lot of points scored, the team that maybe turns it over 2 or 3 times, which means 2 or 3 potentially less touchdowns, could be the difference.
Who are you taking?
I'm taking Homestead, but I took Carroll last week, so...
What does
that say about me?
Well, what does it say about us that we, bet our expectations on 14 to 18-year-old young men and what they are going to do? How unpredictable of an area is that?
We're not betting any money.
No,
at least I'm not.
Well, this is true. I don't know if the Vegas line on Homestead Warsaw is what that would be.
But you got to think confidence-wise, Warsaw's got to be feeling pretty good. Yeah. They've beaten an SAC school. They're going to face another SAC school on Friday. So I think Homestead's got the edge, but you got to think confidence-wise, Warsaw's got to be riding pretty high right now.